Hey guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with a video all about books you have to read before the end of the year. So I just filmed the 15 books I have to read before the end of the year, and now I have 10 books you need to read. So these are 10 that I think some of them will end up on the best books of 2024 list on Goodreads in the romance category, and some I'm just like, I'm obsessed and you haven't read them yet, like you need to now. Some of them are from favorite authors, some of them are fantasy, some of them I'm just like, more people need to read this book. So I believe I read all of these this year as well, so I'm gonna go ahead and get into it. The first one, I feel like everybody needs to read this because I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with this author, and that is Danielle Allen with Curvy Girl Summer. I know summer's coming to an end, so like read this now. You don't have to like read this just in summer. It's about our heroine who is taking the summer to find a boyfriend. And so she is tired of her family really getting on her for not dating. And so she's like, I'm bringing a date to my birthday, didn't you know? And so she has a summer to find a boyfriend before her birthday where she has to bring him as a date. So every Friday she has a new date from a dating app, and she befriends the bartender at this restaurant she goes to every Friday, and he's very worried for her and he's very cynical, but they become friends and it's their romance. It's very angsty because he is dealing with stuff as well, but it is so good. And like the moment where they just like give into their desires, I'm just like, literally the tension was everything, and I was kicking my feet, giggling like, yes, they're finally getting together. The chemistry between these two characters is absolutely everything. I loved it. So read this please if you have not yet, because it was just everything. Then I do have a fantasy that I feel like everybody's read, but if you haven't read it, please read it, because that is When the Moon Hatched. I feel like this is one of the most talked about fantasies this year, aside from Quicksilver, which I have not yet read, but this book blew up this year and I had so much fun reading it. I read it very quickly too, even though it is a very chunky book, and I'm often scared of chunky books. So this has dragons, it has a really great romance, it has a heroine who literally will do things like chomp someone's appendages off. So I really like a heroine who can really take care of herself, and so our heroine does that. The hero does have to come in and like save her in a couple situations, but definitely very fast paced. I didn't find it hard to follow at all. There's just a couple things where I'm like, I still don't really fully understand this world, but I'm very intrigued to see what's gonna happen next, and it definitely left on a cliffhanger. So if you like a very atmospheric read, just very fast paced, I really like this, so I think you would too. Then I read one that's very emotional, and I definitely cried reading this, and that is Here We Go Again by Alison Cochrane. This book, I love Alison Cochrane. I think I've read everything she's written and I've given it all 5 stars. Like, I'm obsessed with her. And this is a road trip romance and enemies to lovers romance. So the two heroines really have never gotten along because they have a past of stuff that happened in high school, and now one of them's like very straight-laced, she's a teacher, the other one is just very chaotic, and they go on a road trip together because their beloved professor from high school, so like their teacher, he is dying, and his last wish is to go on this road trip, and so they take him, and the one has like this itinerary and the other one's like, we're just gonna go where we feel like going, and like obviously they're gonna clash, but they have to confront old feelings, and it is so good. And obviously like their teacher is dying from cancer, so we know where this is gonna lead, and it's still so heartbreaking reading this book, but it is so good. I loved every second of this. If you love a road trip romance, you have to read this. It was amazing. If you want a good sapphic romance, highly recommend. Then a small town romance that I feel like is pretty underrated, and I really want more people to read this author because she just finished writing, I believe, the 3rd book in this series, so it should be coming out at some point. She is writing a different book. Maybe she already finished it. That's coming out sooner. But that is Rope the Moon by Ava Hunter. Tame the Heart's book 1, which I really enjoyed, but Rope the Moon is a second chance romance where it's literally, you came, you called. So like she is pregnant with someone else's baby, it's an abusive ex. She decides to go back home to her small town ranch where her dad and her sister are, but she gets stuck about 8 hours from town, calls her dad who actually has cancer and she doesn't know. So the dad can't come, and the hero hears and he's like, what? And he literally jumps in his car and makes that drive in like half the time. And then she's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, you needed me. It is so good, and really they didn't last because she had bigger and better dreams. She wanted to get out of their small town, and she had a bakery, and so now she's back in town pregnant with an abusive ex's baby, doesn't know what to do, and it is so good. Very small town, second chance, very emotional. I love this series so much, and I can't wait for the next book, but like please read this because more people need to. Another fantasy that I feel like was everywhere, but again, if you have even been like thinking about reading this, please do, because it is The Veiled Kingdom by Holly Renee. I will say I did not love book 2. But I have high hopes for book 3, and book 1 was so addicting. So this one, our heroine's actually the daughter of the king, but she's powerless. So she in the society doesn't have any powers, and the king has only her as the heir. And so she runs away, and she is taken in by the rebels and is training with the rebels at their like secret compound. And the hero is the son of basically like the rebel leader, and he hates her. He cannot stand her, he does not trust her, but they have undeniable chemistry, and like this is true hate to love, and I loved it so much. And the end blew my mind. The end of the next one did not. So I loved this, but please know book 2 is not as satisfying, and book 2 is only 200 pages. This one is, okay, so this has big font. This says it's over 300 pages, but I don't think that the book 2 is long enough. So I loved book 1 though. Definitely a great fantasy romance that I highly recommend checking out. Then I have one that really surprised me that I know is not everyone's favorite, but like what I love in a romance, this one had it. I listened to the entire audiobook in one day, and that is The Game Changer by Lana Ferguson. This book is a brother's best friend romance, but like the hero had so much going on with him. He is a hockey player, but he is divorced, and there's a lot of not true things about him in the media for certain reasons, and his parents are really hard on him, and so he decides to get traded back to his hometown. And the heroine is not a news anchor, she has her own segment on a show that's a cooking show, and ratings are down. She's always had a crush on her brother's best friend, but he was 5 years older, so like when she's 15 he's 20, when she's 13 he's 18. That's just weird. So like he's never seen her as anything more, but she's just had this crush on him, and she tells her network, she's like, hey, I know hockey players, like my brother's a hockey player even though he's injured right now. She's like, why don't we get a couple to like come on the show and see if like that helps ratings. And since his image needs cleaned up because of all the gossip in the media, they send him, and they have like undeniable chemistry on the show, so then they have to start fake dating, and it goes from there. And I was obsessed. I was obsessed with everything about this. I was obsessed with the growth of their relationship. I was obsessed with the dynamic between them when the hero had a lot going on, and how she was there to help him with her brother in the picture too. It was just like so good, and it wasn't cliche when the brother finds out, because you know, like, oh, is he gonna be like really mad? Is he gonna break them up? Like, nothing like that happened. It was just so perfect. The audiobook was amazing. I loved this, so please read it. Then I have one author who has just been killing it lately, and it makes me so happy, but that is Laura Pavlov. If you have not started the series yet, please do. I do recommend reading in order, but Beating Heart is her newest one, and it was just amazing. It is a single dad romance. His son is the cutest. He is basically like appearing in every book, and he's like the son of them all. Like they're all basically uncles to him because it's very found family. All the guys are best friends. The heroine is actually new to town. She's a new doctor, and he doesn't trust her because the son has asthma. He's very protective. He's like, how can you take good care of my son? And she actually is his new neighbor. And so they have to spend a lot of time together, and she just got out of a very serious long-term relationship where she caught him cheating. So she's like, I can't really trust people. I don't know what I want to do with relationships, even my life. She doesn't want to stay in that town for that long, but so good. So good. I love a good single dad romance, and this one was amazing. So check out Laura Pavlov if you haven't yet. I also have a sports romance. So Rebecca Genshak's new one, Playbook, was so good. This is a football romance where it's fake dating. He's the new rookie. He kind of has a reputation, and he wants to be taken seriously, so he decides to fake date her because she needs a fake date because her ex, who cheated on her, is basically parading his new girlfriend around, and her sister and his brother are getting married. So she's like, I don't know how to deal with this, and the hero's like, I can be your fake date, because they run into him at a bar. Long story short, they end up fake dating. And she actually knows the hero because she keeps on getting his fan mail, because he is a hotshot rookie. He gets a lot of female fan mail, and she has his old P.O. box, and she's like, this is disgusting. I'm so annoyed. She meets him like at a club or something, and she realizes who he is, confronts him, and he can't get her out of his head. So he definitely pursues her, and I just had so much fun reading this. It is so good. If you like a sports romance, a football romance, read this one. Then one of my absolute favorite books of the year. Like, if you haven't read this yet, what are you doing? Business Casual by BK Boyerson. This whole series is just like a warm hug and I'm obsessed with it, but this book in particular is Nova's story, and Nova is Beckett's sister, and Beckett is my favorite book of the entire series, but this gives it a run for its money. And Charlie's our hero, and Nova and Charlie kind of like have danced around each other a lot. Nova's very serious. She's definitely Black Cat. He's Golden Retriever. She's a tattoo artist. She's opening up her own tattoo shop, but she has a lot of self-doubt and she doesn't want to let people down. And Charlie doesn't really know what he's doing with life. He has a really, really well-paying job in the city, but he always comes home back to their small town just because he loves it so much. And they're both lonely, even though they don't want to really admit that they're lonely. And so they're at a wedding, and Charlie again is flirty, saying like, let me take you home, and Nova says yes. And Charlie's like, wait, what? So it's their romance, and it is amazing. Like, so small town. Like I said, it just felt like going home, and I'm obsessed with these characters. Please read this if you haven't yet, because it is literally a book I cannot stop thinking about. And the last one I have is Delicate Escape by Catherine Cowles. This book is so special. It is definitely a very slow burn romance, but it is a book where our heroine has been very hurt by an abusive ex in the past. And it isn't physically hurt, but he has tormented her to the point where she ran away and literally lives off the grid. She doesn't have a phone, she doesn't have a computer, she doesn't have Wi-Fi, she can't even let anybody into her house because she's so terrified of other people. And so Shep is the like handyman around town. He works in construction, and he stops by the bakery she works at every day. He's really intrigued by her, and she needs help on her house, and he comes and he's so patient with her and slowly breaks down her walls. He like brings her new food to try, and new food from restaurants around town that she's too nervous to go try out, helps her break out of her shell. And it is just so slow burn, and so slow burn to the point where she's like, will you stop treating me like I will break and just give in already? Like, that's the point she gets to, and it's so good. And it's so just, Shep is just Golden Retriever energy to the max, and I loved him. And the suspense in here was great. There's always twists that I can never guess with Catherine's books, and this book is just so special. This whole series is so special. This is book 2 in a 6-book series, and I cannot wait to see what comes next. And those are some books that you need to read before the end of the year. I will have all of them linked down below if you want to check them out. And if you've made it this far, leave me an envelope emoji for Playbook by Rebecca Jenshak, whether that's the one with the heart or without it. Leave me an envelope and let me know if there's any books that you think everybody has to read before the end of the year. I would love to hear, and that's all I have. As always, thank you so much for watching, and have a good day. Bye.